Your Dog's Friend is a nonprofit 501c3 whose mission is to help keep dogs out of shelters by educating and supporting their humans. We promote positive method of training and behavior modification through stress-free methods. As part of that mission, we offer free webinars like the one you're about to watch. Subjects range from dog behavior, stress-free training, and other tools to help you understand your relationship with your dog. If you like the webinar, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Click the notification bell and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll be notified when future videos are posted. Now enjoy the webinar.
Welcome everyone to our webinar, Welcome Home Pup, sponsored by Your Dog's Friend, a nonprofit 501c3. Our mission is to help keep dogs out of shelters by educating and supporting their humans. Since 2006, we've been promoting the use of positive dog training methods by hosting free webinars like this one, posting valuable resources on our website, offering affordable training classes, both in person and online, and providing free advice and referrals. Our speaker today is Marnie Montgomery from Joyful Dog. Your Dog's Friend is a nonprofit, so if you find this webinar helpful, consider making a donation to help support these free webinars and the other free resources that we offer. If you'd like to donate, you can visit our website at yourdogsfriend.org and click on the donate button. We really appreciate your support. With that, let's get started. Marnie, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, great. I'm a dog trainer and a Tellington T-Touch practitioner. I've been training dogs, now working with dogs for about 10 or 12 years. I'm a Pat Miller certified trainer, a certified professional dog trainer through the Certification Council of Professional Dog Trainers, fear-free trainer, just a lot of other credentials that many trainers pursue. And I see clients privately in Loudoun County, Virginia, and go over the Washington, D.C. metro area a bit, as well as teaching online classes through Your Dog's Friend. So let me go ahead. I have slides that we'll be walking through during the course of the webinar, and they're based on asking what our dogs will ask when we bring them home. We might be bringing home a puppy, we might be bringing home an older dog, but a lot of the questions our dogs might ask will be the same. And the first question is very likely to be, am I safe? Whether a puppy who's come home from a litter and biggest change of their life so far, or an older dog who may have had really even an unknown history and they're in this new place, they really care about the safety. And so the first 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, and even 3 years, as your dog begins to settle in, to feel comfortable, you will see changes in their behavior. Many of the changes are for the better. Things that were stress behaviors, anxiety behaviors that were problematic may begin to fade. But also, as your dog begins to feel more confident, they may begin to explore in ways that are challenging for the humans in the household. So don't be surprised when they act differently as they settle in. It's normal, and we have a lot of really positive ways to deal with those challenges. You want to keep all your interactions with your dogs light and friendly. And when they're first there, we really want to focus on them feeling comfortable and safe. They can learn to sit and stay when they're 18. But while they're new in your home, what's really important is their sense that you've got their back. Okay, so we have our first question in chat. The question is, I've heard the term socialization mentioned a lot when talking about puppies. Can you explain what that is? And it's a great question while we're looking at our dog asking, am I safe? Because as they're forming their first opinions about the world, we want them, older and younger both, to know that they're safe. So, there's a tendency with socialization of young puppies of, thinking if we go through a checklist and expose them to thing A, thing B, thing C, thing D, that we will have socialized them. and that, then they're going to be in great shape for the rest of their life. Depending on your puppy, that may work perfectly. But when I'm working with a young dog to help them to be comfortable with the world, I'm focusing not only on them filling a file cabinet with records of good experiences of things in the world. Note I said good experiences, not simply experiences. Um, so beyond that, I want my puppy to build the skill of processing novelty, of being able to cope with seeing something they haven't seen before, or seeing something that maybe they've seen before, but it's acting differently because, maybe the chair was sitting upright in the backyard and then it's over on its side in the backyard. And there are a couple of things to keep in mind as we're introducing our dogs to the world. Distance from the new thing can be really helpful. It may be that our puppy or our older dog is great looking at, for example, a man in a hat at 30 feet away, but would not be so comfortable with a man in a hat approaching or a man in a hat running quickly. The approach shortens the distance so it can be more intense for the puppy or the older dog, or running by. That increases the difficulty of what we're asking our dogs to process because of the speed. So keep those things in mind when your puppy or your older adoptee is experiencing something that they might not have experienced before. Maybe they have, but we don't actually know. So keep that in mind. Be at a distance where they're comfortable. And, if it's a little bit too difficult, maybe add a little bit more distance. Their body language will tell you. We're going to be looking at body language a little bit later in this webinar. So the body language will help, any vocalizations will help, let you know, is it working? Is it not working? Depending on the dog or the puppy, I really like to couple the exposure to the new thing with something they love. Usually it's great food. And by great food, it might be chicken, it might be mozzarella stick. Usually a single protein source like that is more helpful for our dogs, more appealing than something that comes out of a bag that's called training treats. I would keep in mind there are a lot of different things in the world for your puppy to experience. So I wouldn't necessarily, go through my checklist of 100 things and think, okay, we're done now. It can be a guide for different things your dog's going to experience. They'll experience sound. They'll experience other people, other dogs, other puppies. They'll see motion. A lot of dogs think that skateboards, roller skates, delivery trucks are the devil. So you want to help them build either a positive association and the ability to honestly just ignore a lot of those things. Sounds can be triggering. Thunder, fireworks. Obviously, don't take your dog to a fireworks display. But when sounds happen, maybe especially with a dog who hasn't encountered them before, they may pause. They may go, "What was that?" And you could go, it's the thing that tells us we're about to have a party." And then do something really fun with your dog. So they hear a sound, they wonder, you do something fun. And at your dog's friend, there are some great puppy classes and some great puppy socialization events where they're well managed, where the puppies get to be around other dogs, other people, but in a situation in which the instructors and assistants make sure that your dogs are working well within their success zone. So they're adding to their file cabinet of good experiences. If your dog's friend is not convenient, absolutely, I think it's great to look into puppy classes and puppy socialization classes. I would visit without my puppy beforehand to make sure that all the techniques are positive, that they aren't doing something punitive, no spray water bottles, nothing of that nature, none of the aversive sound producing things either. No penny cans, nothing like that, but just that it's totally positive, and so visit without your puppy. And if you like how it looks, then visit with your puppy. And those are kind of the basics of socialization. The next question that our dogs may ask is, are we going to have fun? What's it going to be like being with you? If you are fun, then boy, you have laid a really good foundation. Finding the things that your dog enjoys, playing with them, being when they ask to play, responding, all of those things can go, really far to building a great relationship with your dogs. I'm going to start by playing a video, which is a free work video. This is kind of a game that we can play with our dogs where they get to explore and use their senses, use their brains, have fun at their own pace. So in this video, I have set up what's called a free work course in my family room. I've got two dogs who did not compete over food or space ever, which is why you'll see two dogs in here. If you have dogs who are competitive with one another for the things they care about, you would set it up one dog at a time. The dog you see is Fleetwood. The little cocker is Cookie. I am taking things that are generally in my family room anyway, and I'm presenting them slightly differently from how the dogs were accustomed to it. The stair stepper, I turned it over so that it was a little bit of a different kind of texture and surface to explore. I put a mat on it. The only thing that might move in a surprising way is this little egg thing, because I don't want to startle the dogs, but I do want them to explore and stretch themselves a little bit. I add treats. The treats are just kibble. It's good kibble. It's Honest Kitchen clusters. But nothing terribly fancy for this. The opportunity to explore is a big part of what's rewarding for them. And I'm not doing any prompting. I'm just setting this out there as something they have an opportunity to investigate. I mentioned the back end work because when the cocker came to me, her back end was very weak. So having this environment for her to explore, but without any pressure, really helped her to become stronger. And then this is not Photoshop. They both did fall asleep after about 10 minutes of doing free work. That's a great way to kind of welcome your dog into your home, set things up for them to have a good time and to have the agency of exploring at their own pace. So the next question might be, will you understand me? Our dogs want to be understood. They're in the new setting. They are communicating with us, whether or not we actually catch on to what they're saying. Their body language is a big part of how they express themselves, perhaps even more than vocalizing. And our body language also is very meaningful to our dogs. Honestly, pretty much more meaningful than the things that we say to them. So got some illustrations by the fabulous artist Lily Chin. I have contact info for her here, doggydrawings.net, as well as she has a wonderful book on canine body language. It is kid-friendly, it's adult-friendly, it's really clear, it's really well observed. So if you don't have that book and you have the dog, I encourage you to go get it. So there are a lot of analogies between how we interact with people and how we interact with dogs. Obviously, dogs are not people, but there's some things that are pretty similar. So for example, if someone runs up to you, especially someone you don't know, you're probably not going to be feeling comfortable. Same with our dogs. They're going to be going, oh my gosh, I was just here minding my own business and this person came running up to me. I've got no idea what's going on. And in that situation, my own dog would be calling out the National Guard. He'd be really reacting because it's scary. Staring. Although we love it when our dogs offer eye contact, we don't want to force the eye contact. Staring from dog to dog either happens in play or happens when they mean to have confrontation. Just the same way that, that it has the same function, honestly, from person to person. And then some gestures. I don't know if anybody here other than me had an older relative who was lovely, but wanted to squeeze my cheeks. I don't know what that was about, but obviously it was a gesture of affection that I totally hated. The same with our dogs. Hugging a dog really can make them very uncomfortable. It's a restraint. And especially, honestly, hugging from kid to dog can be a problem. Face and face is a problem. And as you see in this illustration, again, really well observed. And I see so commonly the person's thrilled and the dog is just looking like, how long am I going to have to be doing this? So instead, when we approach a dog, we want to approach slowly. I like to think that the guy in this drawing is blinking rather than staring as he approaches. Often we want to be approaching sideways or moving in an arc. Dogs don't generally approach straight on, again, unless they are playmates who understand this or if they mean to have conflict. Walking down the street on a sidewalk with another person and dog coming towards you, that's kind of one of the hardest things we may ask our dogs to do. So that lateral approach, so our eyes being soft, can be really helpful. And I love this illustration because it's not very different from the previous one. The little girl is still engaging with the dog. They have contact, but a couple of things are key. The dog is free to move away at any time. It makes it much easier for the dog to choose to stay. And because of her adjustment, everybody's having a good time there. This takes me to one of my favorite kind of approaches, which to interactions with dogs. And we talk about them as interactions with kids and dogs, but truly it's interactions with any human and a dog. This is kind of the way to go, which is pat, pet, pause. This comes out of The Family Dog. They're at thefamilydog.com. Rather than reaching into a dog's space to pet them, which can be, again, really startling, confrontational for a dog who's not comfortable with people, it can go badly and quickly. We want to invite a dog to come to us. So we'll stand still, but we'll be bendy. We don't want to be stiff. And we might pat our thighs, pat our leg to invite the dog into our space. 7 or 8, maybe even 9 times out of 10, the dog will respond by coming to you. It's just kind of a yes, please. If they don't, that isn't never, that's just not now. And when we give our dogs the space to choose the level of interaction, they are considerably more likely to choose to interact with us. Once the dog comes to us, we don't want to pet on top of the head. It's really uncomfortable for a lot of dogs. It can involve the hand kind of approaching from the front, which is kind of threatening. But rather we might pet under the chin. Many dogs love to be petted under the chin, on the shoulder, on the side of the neck, and then, shoulders down to tail. Those are generally well accepted ways to pet a dog. And we want to pet for 3 seconds, maybe even less. And then we want to stop petting. We want to pause. Give the dog a choice. They've already chosen to come in close enough that we invite them to be petted, but we want to give them another opportunity. Do they want to continue this? So we pause. Do they walk away? If they do, it's just, oh, that was plenty, thanks. If they stay without kind of, moving into us, we might pet another 3 seconds and then pause again to ask. And then if they move into us again, I would take that as a yes, but I would still pause. after 3 seconds, because yes doesn't mean forever. Yes means now. This is working great now. So let's take a look at one more video, which is a great video by Go Anywhere Dog. It's on canine body language. Love that she has this palate cleanser at the end. Okay, let's go back to the slides. So the next question your dog may have is, where's my room? Your dog, maybe an older dog, maybe a puppy, regardless, they need a safe place where nobody will bother them, where when they go there, they know that they're on their own. They can take their favorite toy, their favorite shoe, and just be able to enjoy being there in peace. The special room can help with training as well. If you have a household with children or eager adults, it's really good to make it really clear when the dog chooses to be in this place, they're on their own, and barring emergency, they're not to be interrupted. The phrase "let sleeping dogs lie" became a cliche because it's true. A dog's chilling out, we don't want to startle them, and we want to give them their time to rest. Little known fact, most dogs need 18 hours of sleep a day, which seems like amazing, but obviously they don't sleep straight through the way we humans tend to sleep through a night. But they need to be getting that amount of sleep throughout the day. So the room, you want it to be comfortable with respect to temperature, with respect to bedding. Different dogs are going to have different preferences. Some prefer a harder surface. Some prefer a soft, fluffy surface. So there'll be some trial and error figuring it out. We want them to have appropriate toys, appropriate chews, and we want to make sure that it's not drafty. When they're settling in, really with a dog of any age or size, although with an older dog, they may get more independence in your house more quickly. We want that area to be fairly limited in size. If we are potty training, explaining where the bathroom is, we want that area to be small enough that it's really unlikely that the dog will choose to eliminate there, in parallel to introducing them to where the bathroom is. And we'll be touching on that later in the webinar. Could be a pen with an attached crate or a pen with a crate in it. I really like having a pen and a crate and helping a dog get used to confinement, but obviously not extended over long confinements. We want to make sure that the space they're in is safe, is puppy safe, the dog version of baby safe. So we want to make sure there are no hazards, which is another reason, especially if you're in a busy household with a lot going on, that's another reason to have a specialized safe area, because that area is okay for the dog, especially with a puppy, but also with a new dog. I recommend that their sleeping area be near the human sleeping area. A lot of bonding actually happens at night. They smell us, they hear us breathe, they actually probably hear our heartbeat, and we'll be able to hear them if they stir during the night. I wouldn't have them in the basement sleeping while the human family is upstairs. Better to have them closer where this kind of easy bonding occurs. What's the ideal place for them to sleep? In a crate, on the couch, on your bed? There's not really a wrong answer, as long as you're consistent, as long as it's a comfortable area for your dog, and as long as you're really clear in a positive way as to where their space is. So one other aspect of letting sleeping dogs lie is when it's time for our dogs to come out of that space, we don't want to physically force them to move. We don't want to physically put a dog in a crate or a pen or physically pull them out, because that oppositional approach on our part can create a difficult dynamic initially, and it can trigger some aggression as well. So ideally, we can do the pat, pat, pause, where we're patting our thighs and inviting the dog to come, or we can toss treats, toss them out of the pen if they're in the pen, toss treats in the pen for them to go in, play find it, which we'll be looking at in a minute. And we'll touch on this a little bit more later as well. But if your dog has something in her mouth in the pen, we don't want to grab it. Again, we want to guide her with perhaps tossed treats to have something different in her mouth. And just a reminder, the more you learn your own dog's specific body language, the more successful this interaction will be. So I'm going to go ahead and play another video. It's not even a minute long. It is, if I could teach only two things, this is one of them. Crazy simple, ridiculously powerful. And it's called Find It. And we'll be looking at my other top choice a little bit later as well. So you can use this simple game several ways. Notice I'm saying the cue first, and then I'm tossing the treat. All right, and that's it. That is, like I said, crazy simple game, but so powerful. Your dog has stolen a sock. Play Find It. You're out with your dog in the backyard. Maybe do some Find It's, inviting them to walk with you. It's a great way to build value for walking with you. Easy way to build that value. I always play Find It when I return in from the yard with my dog, because he loves that game. And I want coming in from the yard to be as exciting as going out into the yard. And a peek, I see a couple of things in chat in case there are questions. So Agnelli says, I got a rescue yesterday, 1-year-old. I've said no quite a few times. Establishing basic rules, is that bad? So fabulous question. It's good to be really clear on what the house rules are. We want to be looking at making that clear in a positive way by teaching your dog what good behavior is. And that's going to minimize the extent to which we feel we need to say no. So we're going to touch on training a little bit more later in the webinar. My personal rule is I try not to say no, because it doesn't tell my dog what I'd like him to do, but I'm a human being, so it does come out of my mouth. If it's come out of my mouth a couple of times, I'm going to take a step back and revisit my approach to whatever the behavioral challenge is at the moment. And so we'll touch on that when we get there. Okay. Your dog may be wondering about these hairless puppies in your home, or reasonably hairless. That little girl has some great red hair. Kids and dogs, they can be a wonderful combination, but because human rules and dog rules are different, there can also be misunderstandings. So unfortunate statistics, 77% of dog bites are generally to a child by the family dog or the dog of a family friend. So it's a dog that's known to the family, and it's not some evil beast. It's a result of a misunderstanding, because we've put our face in the dog's face. Please don't put your face in the dog's face. But the bites come because we don't read our dog's body language and see, oh my gosh, this is getting hard. We don't notice when they're licking their lips a little bit more than usual that, they're getting kind of uncomfortable. So an adult needs to be actively supervising at all times, not just be present. But another kind of thing to keep in mind is that usually a bite occurs when the adult is present and watching. So we want to be really on our game in terms of understanding what we're seeing. So we've got a great blog here by Robin Bennett. The Animal Health Foundation is publishing it. And the name is When Supervising Dogs and Kids Doesn't Work. Negative name, but the fact is the blog is about how can we set our dogs and kids up so that things do work. If kids are running and the dog is pursuing and nipping, you can change the game with the kids, and this is a perfectly legitimate and really helpful in a lot of settings, have one place for the kids when they need to be doing this active, crazy, I'm running and yelling game, and a place for the dog to be comfortable and not feel the need to, manage what's going on with the kids to pursue and nip. You can give the dog a toy to chew or chase instead. If the puppy has the kid's toy, play Find It from the previous video, or there's another game called the counting game. Again, another wonderful non-oppositional way to retrieve something that the dog has that we would prefer they don't have. And that would be, when the dog's taking our stuff, we're taking their stuff. It's perfectly normal for a dog to guard resources. The dog who protects their sleeping area, protects access to their mate, protects their food and water source, is the dog who succeeds in, making puppies with those same, behaviors of, looking after their stuff. So it's a normal behavior, but obviously we don't want a dog in our home who's spending all their time guarding things. So we need to establish a pattern so that they don't feel the need to guard, so that if they have taken something we don't want them to have, we've taught them to voluntarily drop it, to give it up, and as well as establishing some rules if there are kids in the house. Basically, the rule is if the dog takes a kid's thing, the kids go and get an adult. We don't want to put them in the position of trying to deal with it. So when our dog has something that we need to retrieve from them, if we swoop in and take the thing away from the dog forcibly, we're teaching them that when they have something they care about, when we approach, they're likely to lose it. The more that's our dynamic when the dog has something we don't want them to have, the more likely they are to feel the need to protect the thing that they care about if we approach when they have it. So we want to look at Find It, just as we looked at in the previous video. We want to play it when our dog doesn't have stuff. And then when our dog does have stuff, we also want to play Find It so that they don't think, oh, Find It means they're going to take my stuff away. There is another video which I've called to your attention. We're not going to watch it together today. It's a 10-minute video, which is forever in internet time, but it's an excellent video on teaching a dog to drop a thing. In this video, the trainer, Chirag Patel, goes from 0, the dog has not been taught to drop, to the dog is dropping a hot dog at the end. I think it may be the same day. He's an internationally renowned trainer, so, it went quickly. But, even if it doesn't happen all in a single day, and I wouldn't expect it to, this approach of teaching a dog to voluntarily give something up can be just really powerful. Patel has also created another game that's a little bit of a cousin to the Find It game, and we are going to take a look at this video. It's called the counting game. This is another wonderful multi-purpose skill. Notice he's not chasing the dog. He's just over there having fun with treats. Dog's watching him going, what's going on? And then comes over to explore the trees. Patel moves away, not even looking at the dog. His back is turned. So the counting game, the wonderful game to bring a dog away from a thing, again, in a way that's not oppositional. It's a game, as with Find It, you want to play it when your dog doesn't have stuff, but then you also want to play it when your dog does have stuff. Find it also works. The big thing is we want our dogs to trust that we're not going to mess with their stuff. And when we approach, when they've got something they care about, odds are they're not going to lose it. Let's say your dog has stolen your shoes. I would play find it. I give him back the shoe, play find it again, give him back the shoe, play find it again, give him back the shoe. Maybe the fifth time, instead of giving them back the shoe, I'm going to give them a toy that's similar to the shoe, but it's not the shoe. So they get something great, and they don't lose their treasure. It really changes the whole economy, if you will, surrounding the things our dogs care about. We're going to take a look at mouthiness and biting. Yeah, and our dog may wonder, so how can I say no if you won't let me bite you? And obviously, we don't want the dog to bite us. So why do they do that? Big thing, our dogs don't have thumbs. They use their mouths often the way we use hands. And that can include, not that we want them to do this, but that can include their, putting teeth on our hand to move it away from something. So they may put teeth on us if they don't like what we're doing. A lot of dogs don't like the way that we handle them. A lot of the husbandry that we have to do can be problematic for the dog. A lot of the things that happen at the vet. So we want to help them be more comfortable with these things. And we also want to know, what's going on with this. A lot of times, oh my gosh, especially with a young dog, and by young dog, I mean, puppy through late adolescence, they're just too excited to think. They're like, oh my gosh, the world's exciting. You came home. I am so excited that you're home. I think I'm going to jump up and bite at your arms. And another reason they bite is because they haven't learned an alternative. So we want to teach them other ways to get their needs met that don't involve putting teeth on us. And then they're teething, with puppies, they're little raptors. There's a reason trainers sing the baby shark song. And chewing is their hobby. Chewing is a normal dog behavior. And it's actually a healthy behavior. So we want to give them appropriate things to chew as well. So what we can do is redirect. When my own dog was a puppy, until he outgrew that really mouthy phase, which he experienced off and on until he was 7 or 8 months old. And he still could be mouthy beyond that. I was never more than arm's length from 3 different things that I could put in his mouth instead of my arm or my clothing. Those were kind of his 2 favorite choices. Literally never more than arm's length. I might put things in my pocket, in my belt, so that I would have them there so I could just immediately redirect. Was it 100%? No. And sometimes, he would put teeth on his arms. I'd give him a thing. He'd put teeth on my arms. I'd give him a thing again. And one of the things about redirection is with any dog, and especially with a puppy, is simply handing them that toy and expecting them to amuse themselves. That's not usually the way it works. But if we give them a tug, and even a long tug, where we're holding the other end, that little bit of pressure on the tug or the toy can actually make it really satisfying for them. So build that satisfying alternative. We can teach impulse control with games such as tug with rules. And in that is where we would play a little tug with the dog. We wouldn't get them totally out of their head, but we'd play enough that they're kind of a little bit happy about it. And then we'd pause. We might ask them to drop. We might toss some treats to do a little find it so they voluntarily drop. And then we resume tug. So they come to understand, oh, I let go of a thing to be able to have that thing in my mouth again. We want to address the underlying needs, as with puppies and older dogs. We want to preemptively give them something to do with their teeth or their brain before they bite or nip. And we want to teach other ways to interact with our hands. So this next video is on teaching a behavior called targeting. This is my other thing. If I could teach only 2 things, one would be find it and one would be targeting.
Let's teach our dogs to touch our hand. You'll hear trainers refer to this as targeting or hand targeting. Dogs pick up on it very quickly. It's very easy to teach. We'll get to that in just a minute. But first, let's look at why hand targeting is so useful. We can use targeting to position our dogs. We can use it to teach coming when called and to teach tricks. It can even help at the vet clinic or walking on leash. Hand targeting also shows our dogs very clearly that human hands are safe. No more cowering or ducking away. Here's how it works. Have some treats nearby, but not where the dog can see them or get to them. You'll want to have a clicker in your hand as well. If you've never done clicker training, that's okay. The click is what tells your dog she's about to get a treat. Hold your hand like this with your fingers together and then put it out in front of your dog just a few inches away from his nose. Even untrained dogs are usually curious enough to come take a sniff. Let's try it again, but this time when his nose touches your hand, click, reach, and give him a treat. If you find you need a little help getting started, you can put a piece of food between your fingers, just like this on the first few reps. But seriously, a lot of dogs don't need this. Hand targeting is such great training because it empowers your dog. It's almost like we're teaching him how to make the click happen on his own. Try different positions, different angles, different distances. A little bit of troubleshooting. What if you put your hand target out and your dog just doesn't touch it? He refuses. Well, that's okay. Bring your hand back. On the next try, put the hand closer to your dog. Set it up to be easier so that he can succeed. Targeting is a great way for us humans to learn clicker training. And I want you to learn more about clicker training. I put a link on the screen to clickertraining.com. Great articles and videos available for you there. For Michael's Dogs TV Dog Blog, I'm Michael Baugh.
Stella, come.
Nice. It's really simple. One thing about targeting is when you do it, be sure. So let's say, this hand is my dog and this hand is the targeting hand. Let's say that he doesn't come to my hand, which is my goal. I want to be sure that I don't take my hand to his nose. Because that can be really aversive. And we want a dog who really likes to target. It is such a handy and fun behavior. So rather than taking my hand to his nose, so I put the hand up, he doesn't touch. I'm going to take my hand back. I'm going to present it again, but a little closer. And that's a different experience for the dog from our taking that hand into their nose. It's a really fabulous behavior. So as well as teaching our dogs something better to do with our hands, targeting is also great once we have a dog who loves to do it, because we can use it to bring them to our side. We can use it to ask them to get off the couch. We can use it to call them across a field once they really recognize this or the hand stretched out as a cue. So it just becomes really useful. So the hand is a fabulous, fabulous signal. It's a visual, it's a strong visual. Once our dogs like the game, they see us bring the hand out and their emotional affect just brightens. So that is a fabulous signal, a fabulous cue all on its own. But I also do like to attach a verbal, especially if I'm going to be at any distance from my dog and I want to make sure that he's aware of the hand out there for targeting. Let's say he's facing away. He loves to hand target, touch his nose to my hand. I want to let him know that that's on offer. So what I'll do is, once he's gotten good at touching his nose to my hand, then when I put my hand out, I'll say, touch. So I will present my hand and say my cue, touch, as I do it. And in that way, I have not only the visual signal, but also the verbal signal. And I like to have both choices for a lot of behaviors. All right. So just kind of following on with that introduction to targeting, which is one of the very first things that I teach a dog. It's, targeting and find it. Before a dog's been in my house 24 hours, we've done a little bit of both those things. Your dog's going to wonder, am I going to understand you? And, are you going to confuse me? And are things going to be clear? And so we want to build communication that's kind, that's clear, and that's consistent. And We want to do this in a positive way. The basics of training, the things to do and to understand is that dogs do what works. If a behavior is continuing, even if it's a behavior we don't like, there's a payoff because our dogs are too smart to keep doing something that doesn't work. Sometimes we have to be detectives to figure out what the payoff is. Rule of thumb, if our dog is doing something we like, we reward it. I will often have a pocket full of kibble. I find my dog in the act of doing something great. I'm going to say good or yes or what a fabulous dog, and follow that with a kibble. In general, unless it's dangerous, we want to ignore what we don't like. Reason for that is that if we don't ignore what we don't like, we often come back at it, in an oppositional way. A lot of the behaviors we don't care for come out of anxiety, and that oppositional approach, even if it's not physical, but it's just, the energy is oppositional. We're always saying no rather than saying, do this instead. Those anxiety-driven behaviors can become more intense. It also puts a lot of energy around the thing we don't like. But we don't want to just ignore something and leave our dog trying to figure out, oh my gosh, what did you want? You didn't reward me. You're ignoring me. I've got no idea what to do. So we want to teach a behavior that we like that is incompatible with the behavior that we don't like. For example, if your dog jumps when you come in, when guests come in, and what so often happens is we'll go, no, stop jumping. We might say our dog's name, no, Fido. We may push the dog down and wonder why this behavior continues. From the dog's point of view, they jumped, they got our attention, we spoke with them, we touched them. For many dogs, that is the trifecta of reinforcement. So of course they're going to continue because they got massive reinforcement. So instead, we want to teach them that a different behavior, having 4 paws on the floor, that's what's going to get you the attention. And we're going to adjust our body language to make that behavior more likely as well. We also want to manage the environment to prevent our dogs from practicing undesirable behaviors. Simple answer. Does your dog chew your shoes? Put your shoes in your closet. It's a little bit of a smart alecky answer, but it's also true. If my dog, especially new in my house, doesn't practice chewing my shoes, does practice chewing appropriate dog chews, then over time, as I get more lax with putting my stuff away, he's still going to be much more likely to choose the appropriate thing that he's practiced. So we manage the environment to prevent him practicing the behavior we don't want, in parallel to teaching the alternatives that we prefer. So we'll often get a question about, how long should I train? How often should I train? And I like to say that anytime we're having an interaction with our dogs, somebody's training somebody. Either our dogs are training us or we're training them, or, honestly, I think in the best of all situations, it's mutual as we're learning from each other and adjusting. But in any case, training happens all the time. It happens throughout the day. When you give your dog their food, well, are they jumping up and mugging you for it? Well, maybe if you just pause a moment and let them offer a better behavior and then put the food bowl down. That's a training moment. If your dog learns, oh, if I'm sitting or if I have all 4 paws on the ground, the food bowl makes it to the floor faster. Your dog is smart and they're going to figure that out. So tiny bits of training throughout the day when you're training specific behaviors. And when I have a longer session with my dog, I'm still going to interrupt after maybe a couple of sessions of 5 or 10 repetitions each. So really short little bits, I'm going to interrupt with play or a chill break or a little game of Find It, and then go back to training that behavior again. You'll be surprised at how fast they learn with little tiny bits throughout the day, as well as anytime you're having an interaction think about what you want it to look like and help it happen in that way. So in terms of training basics, we don't want to use force, fear, pain, or intimidation. So we don't want to be, making ourselves bigger, even if we're not, putting a hand on the dog, to train. Punishment-based training techniques work against the relationship you want to build with your dog. They may temporarily shut down a behavior you don't care for, but they don't address the underlying issues or the underlying needs that your dog was trying to meet with that behavior. So a lot of times people will ask why we don't use punishment to train. It seems really efficient. We're telling the dog that what they're doing is wrong. But as I mentioned before, our dogs don't have a sense of right and wrong the way that people do. They just understand this worked, this didn't work. And their behavior is guided by their success or lack of success with that behavior. So that raises the question, if we don't want our dogs to do something and we want to make that behavior not work, why don't we punish them? A lot of reasons. The first is there's massive fallout from taking a punishment-based approach. For some dogs, even a scolding can direct them to come back harder with the behavior we didn't like because of an anxiety element, because that oppositional approach, our aggressive approach, if you will, begets aggression. And we may think, oh, yelling at the dog, that's not aggressive. For many dogs, it is, though, and it brings them back harder. For other dogs who are more sensitive, it can shut them down. So there are some great position papers that come out of the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior, and they go by the name AVSAB. And I direct you there because they take a scientific approach. They're not strident, they're simply informative, and over time, as studies come out, they have increasingly advocated against the use of punishment in training because it can trigger aggression. It absolutely can erode our relationship with our dogs. And why do we get dogs? We get dogs because we want to be with them. We want to do things with them. If our dogs don't trust us because we've been using these scary methods, scary from their point of view, to adjust their behavior, then we're not going to have as much fun with them. And so, because there can be so much fallout and so much weight of science behind avoiding the use of punishment in training, that really brings us back to so what happens with positive reinforcement? Do we want to be permissive? And obviously, no. We want to be really clear. This thing you're doing, we're gonna reward you for that because we really like it. And it also builds that relationship of trust where our dogs know to look to us for great stuff. And you'll begin to see your dog go, oh, is this what you wanted? What about that? And it really builds that nice communication and that nice relationship. So the mechanics of training, building clarity. I like to use a clicker. That was the little device that he had in the hand targeting video. It's a small sound producing device. It marks the behavior that we want, and it functions because it's a unique sound. And we click every time our dog does the thing that we like. And then we follow that click with a tasty treat. We don't do them at the same time, or our dog's likely to only be aware of the treat and not the click. But they'll come to understand very quickly that the behavior they're performing when they hear the click is the behavior that leads to the treat. It's like a little contract. And in this way, we build a creative communication, and it's very empowering for the dog. The dog who understands about clicks is going to begin to work for the clicks. Don't have a clicker, no problem. I often don't have a clicker. So as well as using a clicker, which I love for teaching some behaviors, I'll also have what I call a marker word or a clicker word. It happens, that word happens in the very moment that I would click if I was using a clicker. And it happens in the moment my dog's doing the payoff behavior. A lot of people use yes or good for their marker word. And I'll do that too, but I also like to look at using words that don't come up in conversation, because we want the clicker word, the marker word, to be a sound. We don't want it to be something we inflect the way we would inflect conversation. So I like words like ping and boop. A lot of kid clients like boop. I might use yep, or even click is actually a really good clicker word. It's crisp, single syllable. We can say it in such a way that it really is just basically a sound. So I'm going to play this video on teaching attention pattern games. So we want to build attention with our dogs anyway. We love for it to be voluntary. This is based on some games that Leslie McDevitt, who is a trainer who developed the Control Unleashed approach to training, developed, and she encourages us to be creative with building these patterns as well. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. So when look up, look down, he looks up, and that's when I click. Notice he's just choosing to do it. I put a treat on the ground to reset him so that he can look up again. Yes, I was training in a windstorm. With ping pong, that's McDevitt's name for this. I toss a treat a little bit to one side, orients to me, and I toss a treat to the other side. That just builds that attention when he's in movement. Back and forth going on. A great game. Which he likes well enough that even though the other dog is barking from inside, he's still sticking to it. So my own spin on this game was to do the out and back. He looks at me, I click, and I either drop a treat in front of me or he looks up and I click again, and I toss a treat away. That builds his interest and his choice in coming back to me. Notice he's coming back though, and we're going to do that again. This is a nice little foundation for attention when you're out and about with your dog. Also, a nice way to start building recall. Notice how when I take a couple of steps back, he's even more excited to come to me. And I managed to make this video without falling backwards off the deck. If your dog's confident with proximity to go through, it's a lot of fun too. I click and then I toss a treat. Not every dog is comfortable with that, or you might have a big dog and not toss. But for some dogs, this is way fun. This video, couple of minutes, yeah, just under 3 minutes. That's 3 minutes. That's a great training session. Little bits of training, little highly reinforcing moments of training with our dogs. Way more effective and honestly way more fun for them and us than generally than hours-long training. So the purpose of the video that I just showed, it's multi-purpose. The big thing is that every game in the video that I showed was rewarding my dog for choosing to give me attention. We were outside, there's a windstorm, there's a Cocker Spaniel barking in the background, and yet my dog, without my prompting him, he would have turned if I called his name probably, but without my prompting him, he was choosing to turn to me. The moment that he made that choice, I clicked the clicker and then I followed it with a treat. So in that 3 minutes, I should go back and count sometime how many treats he got in that 3 minutes. But there's a lot of reinforcement for choosing to look toward me and to move toward me without my doing anything other than rewarding him for that great choice. So the purpose of the game is to reward my dog for making the great choice of checking in with me, to do it in such a way that it's a fun game to check in with me. And also because he is checking in with me, getting the reinforcement when he does it, it's very empowering for him. He's making a choice that I would love for him to make, but he's making that choice on his own. So it gives him a lot of agency as well, which is a nice foundation for training. All right. You may be potty training a dog, in which case your dog, whether you're potty training or not, they're going to wonder where the bathroom is. I learned the hard way when visiting a friend that your dog doesn't know that just because the bathroom is outside at your house, that it is also outside at your friend's house. So initially explaining where the potty is, let's say we have a puppy or a dog new to our home, our dog should be one of these three places. They should be outside eliminating. They should be indoors in a place where they won't eliminate, such as a crate or an exercise pen that we've set up to be happy spaces, but spaces where they're unlikely to choose to eliminate. Or they should be under your direct and active supervision, not just sitting in the same room, but you're really aware of their movement, of their sniffing. They might begin to sniff in that special way. So we want to be kind of actively observing them. We want to pay attention to the substrates, to the surfaces that they prefer when they eliminate. Sometimes, especially with a puppy, especially if pee pads have been part of their training, can take a little while for them to figure out that a rug is not a bathroom. So very often with a dog, or especially a puppy who's new to a home, people will pull up the rugs, or especially the throw rugs, because they may trigger that elimination. So don't assume that your dog gets it in a new home. Don't let them have run of your 3-story townhouse without you being with them, because they're part of that time they're probably going to be exploring, trying to figure out where the bathroom is. You want to gradually increase the space, and you want to be with them in that new space as you work together. Your dog might make a mistake. Do not punish them for doing so. Don't yell. The old-fashioned thing of putting the dog's nose in it, that doesn't teach them anything other than that you can be unpredictable and cranky from time to time. And making it unpleasant to eliminate around you can trigger them, teach them that they have to eliminate in secret. So they may find secret hiding places for their bathroom. Or if it's been unpleasant to eliminate around you, they may not want to eliminate when they're on leash with you. Then that can be a real problem when you're not at home, when you're traveling, or if you live in a place where you don't have a fenced yard, but you have to walk your dog on leash. So you want to prevent their opportunity to eliminate inside as much as possible. If there's an oops moment, We humans learn from that. We learn how to set up the environment to make that less likely. And if your dog makes a mistake inside, there are some cleaners that are especially good. Scout's Honor, SKOUT, is one that has worked well for me. But whatever you use, do not use a product with ammonia in it. A lot of cleaners have ammonia that are really effective, but urine has ammonia as well. And so using an ammonia cleaner, the residue can actually trigger your dog to think that they have found the bathroom inside, when in fact, that's the last thing you want them to do. I have a blog that has more information on potty training and some options if you're in a situation, such as an apartment up several stairs where you need to also create an indoor elimination station. Okay. Next question our dog might have. They might wonder where we're going, and we want to help them to learn to be alone. So there are a couple of exercises that I like to do to help a dog be comfortable being on their own. And then there's a video. It's on crate training a puppy, but it's suitable for a dog of all ages, and it doesn't just have to be a crate. It could be, one side of a baby gate or an exercise pen. And actually, before we come back and look at these training exercises, let's look at this crate training video because it really has great information and lays a good foundation.
Use moist, meaty, nutritious food that can be easily broken into small pieces. These training exercises require a high reinforcement rate. Choose your reinforcement wisely. Phase 1, step right in. Teach your puppy that the crate offers an abundance of good things by scattering high-value food on the blanket inside the crate. At the beginning, you might see that they are wary of walking inside. Be patient. Give them time to think and give them the opportunity to look around for more tidbits that they might have missed. At the beginning, your puppy will start off with 2 paws in and 2 paws out, or they might walk in with all 4 paws and reverse out. Let your puppy progress at their own pace. Avoid the temptation to force your puppy into the crate. This will only prolong the process. Capture the moment your puppy turns in your direction by immediately delivering food. Be generous and provide as many rewards as possible before they ever even think to walk back out. Once your puppy is comfortably walking in and turning around in the crate, you can move on to what I like to call the Texas two-step. Offer reinforcement when they step in and turn around, and withhold reinforcement when they step out. Empowering your puppy to choose between being inside and outside the crate will reduce anxiety and form a positive, relaxed association with these crate training exercises. Reinforce your puppy for 15 to 20 seconds using a high reinforcement rate. Then entice your puppy to walk back out by drumming on the floor in front of the crate. Withhold on reinforcement when your puppy steps out to create contrast and build value for being inside. If your puppy starts focusing on you, be still. Don't move or talk to your puppy. You want to give her the opportunity to reorient to the crate. Once your puppy begins to show a clear preference for being inside the crate, you can raise the criteria by luring her into a sit. Again, reinforce for the duration of time that your puppy remains in a sit inside the crate, and then ask her to step out by drumming on the floor. If your puppy is comfortable and confident with all exercises up until this point, you can begin to raise the criteria further by closing the crate door. As soon as you close the gate, give your puppy 4 to 6 rewards in rapid succession before opening the gate again. If you're able to, give your puppy 2 or 3 more rewards if she doesn't attempt to bust out as soon as the crate door is open. Repeat this process a few times over. We want to make sure that she is just as relaxed with the gate closed as she is with the gate open. Loss of appetite, pawing or biting at the gate, stress whining or frustrated barking, and rushing the gate when you open it are all indications that you should drop your criteria and go back to a more basic exercise. Pushing your puppy past their comfort zone will only prolong the training process. The next step is to close the gate and walk away momentarily. The goal throughout this entire process is to keep the puppy below their stress threshold. The more gradual you are in building criteria, the better your results will be. Close the gate, reinforce, walk away 5 to 10 feet, and then immediately walk back and reinforce your puppy. Repeat this a few times over before opening the gate. Again, reinforce your puppy if she remains calmly inside the gate when the gate opens. Physical restraint fuels anxiety. Mental restraint builds calm behavior. Every puppy will progress at a different rate. The better you are at reading your puppy's behavior and body language and adjusting criteria accordingly, the better your training will be. The fact that Harley is settling into a relaxed down is a good indication that training criteria has been set according to her individual needs. And here she is at the end of our session, fast asleep in her crate. To close the gap between these formal training sessions and practical use of the crate, I will start off by having the puppy in the crate while I grab a glass of water, take a snack from the fridge, or go to check the mail, intermittently reinforcing the puppy for calm behavior as I gradually increase the duration of time she spends inside the closed-door crate. I might also sit nearby and read a few chapters from a book or watch a show on Netflix. It's extremely helpful to have your puppy sleep in a closed-door crate near your bed at night so that she associates it with a place of rest and relaxation. Providing a special high-value chewy like a bully stick is one more way to solidify your puppy's positive association with the crate.
I like too that you're steadily increasing it because she's telling you that's okay.
Always about the feedback that you're
Yes.
getting from the dog. And if they're struggling, then we're
Slowing it down, yeah.
Slow it down, drop criteria.
Love that video. I also love the part at the end where they talk about how, which is true of any of the training that we do with our dogs, whether they're older dogs or puppies, talk about how the puppy's response is what tells us, are we in the sweet spot? Can we make it harder? Do we need to go back a little bit? That's great. Okay, Anna Maria has a crate for a puppy in your bedroom, but the family spends most of the time in the living room. Should we move the crate there? She doesn't really have access to the crate during the day unless we open the door for her. So I would say, I love that you have a crate in the bedroom so that your puppy can be, can be learning about the crate at night and you're right there so that she, isn't concerned. Wow. If you have need to have her crated during the day, you may want to get a second crate, or if it's easy, move the crate around so that if you're in the living room and it's time for her to be in her crate, she can be there. So it's a bit of an it depends. For a lot of puppies and older dogs, there's a big difference between being crated at night, which is kind of no big deal, versus being crated during the day, which for some dogs can be problematic. So I would say if she's usually with the family when you're in the living room or the family room, and potty training not an issue, and she crates easily when you need her to be crated when you go out or at night, then I would say you're already on a path to success. If, on the other hand, she finds it difficult to be crated when you need her to be crated during the day, then I might consider relocating or perhaps getting a pen that's not a crate, but a playpen if you need to contain her in the living room. I mean, it's a great question. It's a great question. The big thing for me is, yes, sometimes a dog will be crated and I'll be moving away from them. I won't be right there, but I don't want them to spend a lot of their time in uncomfortable isolation. So these are two training exercises. I put them together for a client who was expecting a baby and had a young dog. She was kind of a tween, and with all that implies. So the dog was kind of struggling with being a tween, but they're fabulous clients, expecting a baby, and knew that they wouldn't be able to, give the dog the same, nature of attention, or proximity that they had been able to before the baby came. So we wanted to help the dog be comfortable with being on the other side of an X-pen or a baby gate when they were on the other side, or also being on her own from time to time. So training exercise number 1, you could have the dog on one side of a baby gate, one side of a pen, or in a crate. I'd give him something fabulous like a frozen Kong, or there's a toy out now that's a wonderful toy called a Popsicle, which is a great licky toy as well. So I'd give the dog something fabulous. I'd step away. I'd return immediately, and I'd trade a treat for the fabulous Kong. give them the Kong back, say, I'll be back, step away, return after being a little bit longer, trade for the Kong. Notice we're trading, so we're not just taking the thing away. Gradually increase the times of my departures in tiny increments that are successful for the dog. And I'm not always going to make the departure longer because we don't want it to just only get harder. Sometimes the departure is going to be a little bit shorter, and just lather, rinse, repeat until the dog is bored with our departure. And what she had in the video about dogs in the crate, I go get a glass of water and come back. That kind of thing is great because it's the dog's not going, ooh, we're having a training setup, but it's becoming kind of real life. And then the other exercise, again, they alluded to in the video, of just sitting down, watching Netflix or reading a book, dogs in the crate or the other side of a baby gate. And you're just there, you're reading, you're present. You can occasionally give your dog a treat. If your dog begins to vocalize or whine, unless they're in distress, unless they're truly in distress, but there's just a little grumble, I would wait for them to be quiet before interacting again. We want to catch the behavior that we like, not just with this, but honestly with all the training we do. The hard part is we creatures are wired to notice when things aren't going well more than we're wired to notice when they are going well. So we're going to want to give ourselves a little mental reminder to catch when things are good and then gradually extend the time. Okay, so we have some great questions. Let's look at them now. So Agnelli says the crate that they ordered is arriving Monday. And Agnelli works remotely 3 days a week and will be going to the office Tuesday and Wednesday. There are only a few hours between getting the crate and leaving the house for 10 hours on 2 consecutive days. Any suggestions? So that's going to be a huge contrast for your dog, who is a 1.5 years old, possibly cattle dog. My first choice would be if I have a neighbor or a friend or a family member who is able to come midday to take the dog out or to hang with the dog, I'd introduce them now, just let them have a nice, easy interaction so that your dog can have a break, because 10 hours is a long, long time for any dog to be alone, and especially when they're new to your home. With a smart dog like a cattle dog, they may kind of develop hobbies in your house that you don't particularly want as well. So I would try to get someone who could come in to give the dog a break. And of course, there are people who do that professionally as well. And I would practice some of the I'll be back. So you don't have the crate, but you could perhaps practice I'll be back with the dog on one side of a baby gate while you step away into another room and then return, so that you're practicing that behavior, although the setup is a little bit different. And Anna Maria says, our 4-month-old puppy jumps the baby gate. So first answer is going to sound like a smart aleck answer, which is get a higher gate if you can. I actually have the highest gate that I was able to find, which is about 42 or 40, somewhere between 42 and 46 inches high. It's not going to contain an adult coonhound, but it might be enough while your coonhound is learning the skill of staying on one side of the gate. That would be my step number 1. And you certainly can help them become comfortable with closing a door on them. Again, you do it pretty much the same way as they did with the crate in the video, but I'd be starting with a higher gate. And I've had some clients who they've actually been successful with dogs who are big time jumpers with actually having 2 gates. So they might have the bottom gate would have a swing door, and then the top gate would be one of the pressure gates that they would just put in when they would leave, and that would contain the dog as well. I think the big takeaway here is, as much as we want to spend every waking moment with our dogs, and I certainly am one of those people. We also want our dogs to build the confidence to be okay when we're not with them. It's not that we don't want to be with them, because we totally do. But we want our dogs to be okay when we're not there. All right, dog parks. Do we like them? Do we hate them? Do we have mixed feelings about them? And I would say I fall into that final category of mixed feelings. So let's just kind of look at some of the things that can happen at the dog park. The good thing at a dog park, depending on the dog park, appropriate play with a few good friends. Sniffing is fabulous. We love to give our dogs opportunities to sniff. It's the best thing we're going to ask them to do. And it's a really natural behavior. And when our dogs get to sniff, they are kind of more at home in their own bodies. If a dog has plenty of opportunity to sniff, we may see some of the challenging behaviors begin to fade. It's also great for them to have fun running back to their people. Like, oh, I'm playing with my peeps and I'm running back to you. That's fabulous. The bad, your dog can pick up bad manners at the dog park. They can get in your face manners. They can get hyper aroused every time they see another dog, because they go to the dog park and then, they're pulling you to the door and in they go. And so their response is just that hyper arousal. They can practice being too much around other dogs and people, which can translate, not for the good, to times that they're not at the dog park. And the other people at the dog park often don't pay a lot of attention to what their dog is doing, so things can go badly really quickly. Also, the other people at the dog park may have different rules, different house rules, different ways of interacting with dogs, and that doesn't always work well either. Sometimes they'll interact with dogs, honestly, in ways that set them off. And then the scary, a brief interaction with another dog, if it's a negative interaction, can create a lasting fear or a lasting negative response. And, obviously we don't want that to happen. For some dogs, they're very resilient and the bad interaction is like whatever. But for a lot of dogs, they can be more sensitive and respond to that one event, in a lasting way. Also, there's a lot of arousal at the dog park. Think frat party, sports event. I'm a hockey fan. Think hockey fans, get hyper aroused. So a group of dogs who are hyper aroused are a fight waiting to happen, if you will. So, keep those things in mind if you take your dog to a dog park. I know I have some clients who they're quiet dog parks. They're able to go and meet with, with a few friends, and it's a really good interaction. But some of the densely populated dog parks, you don't know the folks, you don't know the skills of the other people and the skills of the other dog. That's a bit of a gamble. While we're talking about dog parks, there is a thing called Sniff Spot that some of you may have heard about. It's like the Airbnb of people's backyards. People rent their yards or other larger properties for other people to bring their dogs. And when you're at a sniff spot, you and your dog and whatever other people and dogs you've invited to join you are the only dogs there. And so you can create your own well-managed play area, dog park. And they're not terribly expensive. Some are more than the others because the person with the space sets the prices, but it's well worth looking into. And it gives your dog a chance to sniff around freely as well. Okay, the car. Some dogs love the car, but my own dog had a spell where just one morning he woke up and was like, yep, no, I'm not getting in the car. And I have clients who have that same issue. So it's something that we want to pay some attention to. If your dog's easy getting in the car, you make sure that 9 times out of 10, or at least 8 times out of 10, you're going somewhere other than the vet. You want to go places that they think are fabulous, like to a sniff spot or a park, or, somewhere, go, shopping at the pet store, somewhere that they really enjoy. For some dogs, it's the movement of the car that takes some getting used to. For a dog who's truly car sick, there are medications that the vet can give them. For others, it may just be a little bit weird. So taking a short test drive, which can be as simple as we go out to the car, we have wonderful treats, turn on the engine, back up in the driveway, drive back up in the driveway, turn off the car, go back in the house. Silly as that sounds, the little tiny test drive can really help your dog. And as they get used to the effect of the movement, you can make them longer and ultimately go places. Make sure your dog is stable in the car. Not feeling stable can really be unsettling as well. And if they won't get in the car, I invite my clients to kind of get down on hands and knees and look in the door that you're asking your dog to go through and see what that space looks like. And usually it looks a lot like we're asking our dogs to go into a dead end tunnel if they're going in the back seat, or if they're going in the back end of the car. So we may want to look at ways to make that easier for them. One thing I did, because I have a yard that I could get my car in just barely, when my dog had made it clear that he was not going to be getting in the car voluntarily, and I didn't want to be forcing him, I drove my car into the backyard, closed the gate, opened all the doors, hung out in the car. I guess I put some tunes on. I was watching Netflix on my iPad, drinking my coffee. And the other dog was out there too. And anytime he chose to come in the car, there was a treat party, and then he got to go out again and began to come back in the car. And that really changed up the dynamic again, that element of choice. I also, because for many dogs, they're low and we're asking them to jump up into an unknown space. For a brief period of time, about 2 weeks, I carried a fold down platform with me because my dog loved jumping up on a platform. Put out a platform, he would jump on the platform, and then he could really get a good view of what was going on in the car. And so he could go, oh, this is not a scary dead end tunnel. I think I'll get in. So those are just some things to keep in mind if you're having some challenges. And if you're not having challenges, make it really fun. Make it a game for your dog to get in the car. Anna Maria, I think I kind of anticipated your question about suggestions about motion sickness for dogs. I would talk to the vet. I would also consider 2 other things. One is a body wrap such as a thunder shirt. For some dogs, I can't point to any scientific studies. I can only say that, in my experience with some of my client dogs, a body wrap such as a thunder shirt will help a dog who has some motion sickness. If your dog's a puppy, you may be fortunate. They may outgrow that when they enter adolescence. And I was fortunate with that, with one dog who was terribly car sick until he was about 6 or 7 months old. And then as his little systems matured, it became a lot less of an issue. Do we have to go to the vet? I did mention I had one dog who he was really just kind of a little weird. He loved the vet. Anytime we passed the vet's office, he would whine if we didn't stop. So I guess we got that right. My current dog is way more nervous about the vet. So we've had to do a few more things to help him be okay with the vet. So that includes practice visits, happy visits. And they don't have to stop after your first couple of times going. But, check with the vet or staff about, about their availability for practice visits and happy visits. Going in, the staff loves dogs, and so, they'll interact with him, give him treats, playing on the scale. I love doing paws up on the scale. Get up, get down, get up, get down, sniffing around. Depending on the way the office is set up, where your visit occurs during, during their schedule for the day. Sometimes if you go in during lunch, you'll be the only ones there, and you can set things up for your dog to sniff out and hunt and find. Fear-free vet visits. So I currently go to a fear-free vet, or we currently do. And so here is a link, fearfreehappyhomes.com, and I think simply fearfree.com. If you go down either path, you can get a listing of fear-free professionals, which includes fear-free vets. And many practices have a number of fear-free vets, although the practice is not itself listed as a fear-free practice because there are some very specific requirements for that. But if the staff is all fear-free, then you're probably in good shape. And what happens at a fear-free vet visit? It's generally longer. As a result, it's more expensive, but worth it if your dog is nervous about going to the vet, because the vets take their time. They do a lot of the kind of things that we've talked about in terms of helping your dog make the decision. Oh, yes, I could put my chin in your hand so you can look at my eyes or my ears. We can do some training to help our dogs get more comfortable with that as well beforehand. I like to teach relax on a mat. I will take my dog's mat to the vet with me. If I forget the mat, the vet probably has a towel I can use. But I've taught my dog, my client dogs, this rectangle of fabric is a safe place to lie down and have great stuff happen. So having that happen at the vet is great. Licky mat, many of you may be familiar with this. It's a kind of a silicone thing with the little ridges, and you can just smear some peanut butter or cream cheese, or I will often just put my dog's moist food on it, and they lick it out. The licking is calming. I have to say, when I take this to the vet's office, and I set up the room, go back to my car and get my dog so that the room is just waiting, being fabulous. When I set it up, the first thing my personal dog does is he goes to the licky mat because it's really calming to lick stuff. I may take a Kong, I may take something for him to sniff. There's also, in addition to fear-free, there's a movement called cooperative care, which you may want to do a search on. There's some courses in cooperative care on the Fenzi Dog Sports Academy that where you can go through a class to help your dog be comfortable with these things. So let's go ahead and take a look at this mat video because I think it may be helpful. So this video is with a puppy, but it absolutely applies to an older dog. You can totally teach an older dog to be comfortable with this. This is by a wonderful trainer named Sarah Owings. She's is well worth a Google and following her.
Okay, relax on the mat. With the puppy. Good girl. Peachy, your little one. Good. Okay. Well done. Nice job. Nice job.
I love her statistics. So, oh yeah, and this is based on a book called Chill Out Fido. It's been around for a while. It's a really fabulous book. And when we go back to the slides, this link down here under handout, Nan Arthur, who wrote the book Chill Out Fido, that that approach to teaching mat work is based on. She's also made her Relax on a Mat protocol available in this PDF on the internet. It's very generous of her. If you first time you read it, it may seem a little daunting because it is really detailed. But I would encourage you to persist. And even if you don't do each step exactly the way she's described, pay a lot of attention to the subtle indicators of increased relaxation that she includes in this protocol, because it's really useful information. So once you've got your dog being comfortable on the mat, really handy at the vet's office, I'm here to tell you, I never go to the vet without a mat. And it can be helpful dealing with the fact that often people at the door, people coming and going, can be really scary for our dog. People when we're out and about, we want our dogs to be able to figure out that people are okay. And simply putting them in the position of proximity to other people, unless your dog's really social, really finds that reinforcing, can actually work against you. It can make them more sensitive to people. It can make them more concerned about other people. So we want to set our dogs up, again, to go at their own pace, to be able to drive their own bus, if you will. And I like to use a game called the Treat Toss game, which is based very loosely on Suzanne Clothier's a Treat Retreat game. And how does that work? When we introduce our dogs to new people, we often give the new person something wonderful, best treat ever, filet mignon, because what dog doesn't want that? And we ask that person to feed the dog that fabulous treat, and they may lure them to themselves with a fabulous treat in order to build a positive association. And that comes out of the best motivations. We want to build a good association with a new person. It's even a great plan, except that if our dog is nervous about a person and that person has a treat that is just so good, our dog may well go out of their comfort zone to get that great treat. So they go beyond what they would normally choose to do. So they've been coerced to an extent. I mean, in a happy way, but coerced with a treat. Once that treat is gone and our dog is right next to that person that they're still worried about, and they're way closer than they would have chosen to be without having been lured out of their comfort zone, that can increase their anxiety. You know, in the worst of all possible worlds, you can get a bite then. But even if that isn't the consequence, that increased anxiety is not going to help your dog be okay with the person. It's going to make it harder. So instead, what we want to do is we want, when your dog kind of takes note of the person at a distance where they're comfortable, the person's going to toss a treat past your dog. They're not going to ask them to come closer. They're going to say, oh, you know, they're just going to toss that treat past the dog. Your dog's going to go, huh, there's cheese. It just went flying past me. They're going to turn around, go eat that cheese, and then probably turn back and look at the new person as if to say, is that going to happen again? What's going on there is your dog is getting a double reinforcement. They're getting the cheese or the meat or whatever it is. You really want to use an extra special wonderful treat for this. You know, the wonderful treat, and they're getting distance from the thing they're worried about. So rather than asking your dog to move closer to get filet mignon, Dublin or cheese, you are saying, oh, you can move away from me, get this great treat, get that distance. And then if you take note of me again, I'm going to toss this treat again. So, lather, rinse, repeat. Your own dog's speed of feeling more comfortable with the person is going to be really variable from one person to another, and one dog to another. But it gives your dog a lot of control and makes it much more likely that they're going to make the choice to interact or begin to interact with the person. Having the person seated at first can be particularly helpful because if the person's standing, that can be a little imposing. If the person's down on the floor with the dog, that can be too much. But seated is kind of neutral, and most dogs are reasonably comfortable with that. Here is a link to a video of this happening in a shelter situation. It's a really slow, boring video, which is exactly what we want to have happen when we're working with dogs who are anxious. You'll see a dog who's just kind of choosing a distance from a new person that he's comfortable with and where he can succeed. And the change in body language in the dog is pretty subtle, but you may find it interesting to look at and just kind of watch as the dog interacts and becomes just kind of a little bit less crouched, a little bit more upright. One thing to keep in mind when you do this is the way that you toss the treat. So if your visitor, your new person, is the one tossing the treat, they don't want to be doing overhand. They want to minimize the movement of their hand as much as possible. And you can start it where you, as your dog's person, are actually tossing the treats at first. That may be more in your dog's comfort zone. So a couple of places at which your dog is going to encounter other people is at the front door, and just a general question within the home. So when new people come to your home, it's not always in your dog's best interest for them to be right there. So many things happen at the front door. There's a doorbell or a knock, and then people come, and there's hugging, and there's high-pitched talking. And if they're kids, there's lots of running around. That can be an awful lot for a dog to process. So before people come, you want to consider, again, maybe a baby gate, depending on how your house is set up. The front room could be kind of an airlock where you put a gate so that your dog is never quite at the front door, and that just lowers the intensity of the whole experience. It's kind of a, if you will, lazy way to train, which I love, because if you have the gate, your dog can't get to the front door. They're going to learn, I don't go to the front door over time. If every single time the gate's closed, you deal with what's going on at the front door without having to worry about the dog. That can be easier for you as well. When you have visitors, you want to consider where your dog will be when people are visiting for an event, for a gathering, or for a longer period of time. If your dog is new, they can easily become overwhelmed, and even plenty of dogs are overwhelmed by a lot of people in the house. So if your dog is one who isn't all that social, they may want to be in another room with some music and some great treats, or long-lasting chew or a Kong. That may be their happy place. If they're more social, that may be a great time once you've trained the mat behavior to actually then have a mat where you take your dog perhaps on leash once your visitors are in and seated. So a little bit of strategizing and planning in advance can really help you and your dog set things up for for success. So enrichment, we looked at enrichment a little bit with the free work that we were doing at the very beginning. So I'm just going to touch on this a little bit. That was the first video we watched. So enrichment can be free work. It can be a feeding device that involves a lot of sniffing, or a licky mat. Pretty much anything that presents opportunities for our dogs to act in normal dog ways can be enriching. People talk about species appropriate behavior. So setting up the free work course for the dog to explore, it engages a number of senses, uses their brain, gets problem solving. This photo, it's close up, so I don't know if you can tell. This is one of the first enrichment devices that I ever used, and I still use it. This is a muffin tin. And in the bottom of some of the cups are some of my dog's dry food, maybe a smear of peanut butter, not a massive amount, just a little bit. So we have the crunchy, we have the licky, and then I put my dog's toys on top so that they would pull them off in order to reveal the food underneath. And in the case of some of these toys that have kind of ridges, I might have smeared a little peanut butter or cream cheese on that as well. So there's kind of a multi-level experience. Most of what was in the muffin tin was actual dog food, moist food or dry food, with just a little bit of addition of the tiny bit of peanut butter or cream cheese. Made the mealtime a really great opportunity for the dog to exercise their brain. Roommates, your dog may wonder, who are these other critters who are here? It's a theme. Liberal use of crates, baby gates, and X-pens will prevent heartbreak. You can use these barriers to do introductions of dog to cats, dog to other dogs, in a safe way, where they interact through the barrier. You can maybe even toss a little kibble either side of the barrier, so that there's reinforcement. Dogs sniff, you guide them away with something fabulous, they come back and sniff. So we're reinforcing that, the good interactions. And we're also interrupting with the treat toss before they've been engaging so long through the gate that it's getting too intense. You want to take any introduction slowly. I like to do what's called parallel walking, where I start outside with my dog and the other dog, and we're just walking maybe opposite sides of the street. There are a lot of farms in my county, so I actually like to do a lot of this out at big farms, or sniff spots are fabulous. That walking in parallel, our dogs get a lot of information about one another, and which is a big part of what drives some of that urgency to interact. And they get that information. It can help them with the actual meeting as well. With a cat, you want to make sure that your cat has someplace safe to escape in every single room, so that they, unless your dog is height seeking as well, so they have somewhere high where they can move away. And there is an article called From Predator to Pal by Pat Miller. You can, if you Google it, you can find it, where she goes through a multi-week, dare I say, even perhaps a multi-month process to introduce a German Shepherd to to being calm around cats, and then to a specific pair of cats who were suitable. And in the article, she talks about kind of the layered little tiny bits of introduction and raising the bar that created a really successful outcome. All right, tied together exactly why. Walking on leash, that may be the hardest thing we ask our dogs to do. Walking in a straight line right next to us, especially if there's somebody coming directly from other, toward us. That's just not something any dog in their right mind would choose to do left to their own devices. So we want to make it rewarding for our dogs to be walking next to us. And rather than using the leash as a restraint, we want to use it more as a seat belt. So this is, I will say, your dog's friend has some great leash walking resources and classes well worth looking into. There's a lot involved in leash walking. So we can only really just scratch the surface. But I would say with a dog who isn't familiar with a leash, I'd put a leash on them, take a walk inside and take the leash off. If you have a fenced yard where your dog can move freely, you can introduce them to the leash in little tiny bits. If you don't have the fenced yard, then of course you have a bit more of a mission. I would choose quiet areas where your dog can simply kind of get the measure of being on a leash. A lot of people want to put their dog on a short leash, 4-foot leash, because they want to keep the dog right next to them, which in a dense situation, you absolutely want to do. But when I'm just walking my dog in the neighborhood or around my yard, he's never on a leash that is shorter than 8 feet. He may not be 8 feet away from me. He may not be all the way at the end of the leash, but I can gather it up a little bit, release it out. And that helps us find his comfortable space bubble, because a 4-foot leash doesn't usually give our dogs enough room for their space bubble. A 6-foot leash might for some dogs. And then the 8-foot leash gives me a lot of options, because, it can be 8 feet, or I can gather it up so that it's a 4-foot leash. I always take food with me. Find It is the bomb. If you teach your dog nothing else, just do some Find Its when you're out walking with your dog. It is so helpful, especially if you're doing Find Its by your side. You don't want your dog to drag you to other dogs, because that builds that expectation that they can take you places. And again, that when they see another dog, that they will meet. But you want to be at a distance where your dog's comfortable, they're not pulling. And you don't want to yank back. You want to use Find It, your charm, your the patting part of pat, pet, paws. When our dogs yank on the leash, it triggers us to pull. So we're asking the creature at both ends of the leash to work beyond reflex. And then initially be really careful. Don't take your dog to a fireworks event. So with respect to leash walking and what our dogs wear, the gear our dogs wear when they're out and about, first off, we prefer harnesses for a number of reasons. We want whatever gear our dog is wearing to be safe, and part of the safety is, of course, they won't escape. But a big part of the safety is its effect on our dog's physical health and structure. So a collar, going around the neck, putting pressure on it. When our dogs pull on the leash, or if we pull back on the leash, which of course we want to learn not to do, but it happens. It stands to damage the delicate organs in our dog's throat. The thyroid, the other glands in the throat, the trachea. Tracheal collapse is a concern. And that can come from our dogs just repeatedly pressing against the collar. So that's a reason that I absolutely, if I'm in a situation where I think my dog might pull, he's absolutely going to be wearing this harness that you see in this photo. This is a T-Touch Harmony harness. The Freedom harness is also one that's a bit more easily available. You can find in a big box store. You can get on Amazon. The balance harness also available on Amazon, which is very similar to this. And then there's the Pet Safe 3-in-1 harness, which is also not a bad harness. What do we like about T-Touch Harmony harness? It frees the shoulders. You can see, I don't know if you can see my cursor going over, but there are no straps over the structure of the dog's shoulder or around the chest. That's ideal because pressure over the shoulder can affect your dog's gait. And affect the way he moves, not only when he's in a harness, but when he's out of a harness. You'll notice that in this photo, we have a double-ended leash. It attaches to the back and to the front. This is also my preference if I'm in a situation where I think my dog is going to be struggling, maybe wanting to get to stuff where it's not safe or appropriate to do so. The reason for that is that the double point of contact keeps his weight more balanced than a single point of contact on either the back or the front would. It does take some getting used to. If you choose to go this way, I highly recommend it, but admittedly, it does take some getting used to. If your dog is on a single point of contact, you'll notice in this harness, there is a structural ring toward the neck. You can attach the leash there. Why would you do that? In the case of this harness, the points of contact on the back are very close to the shoulder blades. They're not much more likely to trigger pulling, actually not more likely at all to trigger pulling than a collar or an attachment in the front. A front attach harness, and this double clip harness you can also treat as a front attach harness, can be a nice way to go when you're training your dog not to pull on leash. Now, there's some caveats. If your dog does pull on the harness when it's attached to the front, it puts kind of a sideways pressure on your dog's skeletal structure. So you don't want to be persistently pulling to the side. But for a spell where you're training, that's a much better choice than a punishment device. What's a punishment device? A prong collar, a shock collar, also often called a stim collar or an e-collar, nice marketing language, but it delivers a shock. A choke collar, which is basically a noose. So any of those punishment devices, they stand to risk, again, damage to your dog's delicate throat and neck. Also, they are punishment devices. And so there's the hazard of fallout that we spoke about when we were talking about why we use positive methods. And, we don't want to either shut our dogs down or trigger an oppositional or aggressive approach. But never a punishment device. It's only going to work against you and is going to damage your relationship. This video is a video introducing a puppy to walking nicely by the trainer's side. And in that video, the puppy is not even on leash. She's building the place by her side as a zone of reinforcement. One of my very favorite videos on leash walking. So I encourage you to take a look at that link on YouTube when you have a chance. So I think there may be a question in chat. Oh yeah, okay. My dog pulls me so much that I would have trouble doing something like find it. We looked to find it a little earlier because she's dragging me down the street. What should I do in the moment when my dog pulls hard on the leash if I am not supposed to yank her back? That's a great question. And there are some ways that we can change it up. Takes a tiny bit of time and practice on your part to change your habit. But there are a couple of things. So often when our dog is going down the street, it's like they're the motorboat and you're the water skier, or you're a boat anchor being dragged behind them. They're pulling forward, putting pressure on the leash, which triggers us to pull backward on the leash. It's an automatic response. They pull forward, we pull back. Alternatively, we pull back, they pull forward. Our pressure pulling back can trigger our dog to pull forward. And as an aside, depending on the situation, it can, if your dog, for example, is pulling toward another dog, it can trigger a momentary aggressive response as well. So we don't want to be doing that. But, you know, our dog's a motorboat, we're the skier, you know, helplessly being pulled behind. You don't want to pull back, but you do in that moment, you want to match the pressure your dog has put on the leash. So your dog is pulling forward, don't pull back, but match that pressure so your dog can't pull you to the place that they're going to. And then this is a part where we need to adjust our habits a little bit. And you can even practice this by clipping a leash onto a piece of furniture at home, if you will. We want to match our dog's pressure, but then we want to go hand over hand down the leash as we walk forward to our dog's shoulder. We don't want to stop at their back end, which is where most people stop when they first do this, but we want to walk to our dog's shoulder. When we get so that our hip is by or just a little bit in front of our dog's shoulder, 9.9 times out of 10, our dogs will look at us. In that moment, they will take a look at us. It may be fleeting, but that's our opportunity. So in the moment that our dog looks at us, we're going to present the best food we've ever fed them. Works great, especially if you practice this when your dog's not pulling towards something. Just randomly do this on a walk. Hand over hand to our dog's shoulder. You know, present a meatball, which is awesome for many dogs. Lure them in a U-turn away from the thing they're pulling toward, and you can go in the other direction. When you do that, that's probably a great time to play find it. You can play find it and keep tossing the treat away from whatever it was that was drawing your dog's attention. You don't want to begin find it until you're far enough away that your dog's brain has re-entered their head and they're able to connect with you and play the find it game. So in a situation where a dog's pulling toward a thing, this is kind of the basic approach. And I would say, you know, if you're in the greater DC area, your dog's friend does have some great classes on leash walking that will give you a hands-on opportunity, and reactive dog classes as well. They'll give you a hands-on opportunity to work some of these techniques. All right.
Thank you so much. This was such an informative webinar. It was so helpful, and it really generated a lot of great questions too.
I'm so glad. It's always a pleasure doing these webinars.
Yeah, well, we want to thank everyone who joined us today, and we recommend checking out our website at yourdogsfriend.org for lots of great stuff, free behavior information and resources, classes, both in person and online, and then links to our YouTube videos, which are all the former webinars that we've had over the years. So I guess that concludes our webinar today. Marnie, thank you again.
Oh, thank you so much. You're so welcome. You're so welcome.